Welcome back to Cafe Oleh. My name is Jay. Here at Cafe Oleh with Nefesh, we go over the everyday Hebrew you need here in Israel to succeed, whether that's reading and paying your bills, like we're going to do today, going grocery shopping and reading nutritional labels, keeping up with the news, striking up any kind of conversation, flirting, dating, complaining, job interviewing, all the everyday communications you do in your native tongue, in your country of origin, but here in Israel in modern Hebrew. As always, we want to hear from you what topics you'd like us to cover. You can always be in touch with us by email, hebrew@nbn.org.il. If you are joining us live on Zoom, you can always write to us in the chat with any questions, comments, concerns, and most important, requests for topics. You can also see all of our previous lessons up on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com, type in Cafe Oleh, or even Nefesh B'Nefesh. You'll see a playlist of all of our previous lessons. There's more than 100 lessons up there. The last, I would say 20 to 30 have the vocabulary spreadsheets that we go through each class attached to them, along with a description, along with all sorts of other valuable resources in learning Hebrew. With that, let's get started. Our numbers might be a little low tonight, only because Israel moves to Sha'on Kaitz. We've talked about this before. Sha'on Kaitz is daylight saving time, or literally summertime. At the end of March, we do it in conjunction with the European Union. That's been the case for the last 10 years or so. Whereas in North America, they've already switched over to daylight saving time. So people who didn't get that memo, spring forward also means we didn't move quite yet here in Israel. So always a reason to check out our YouTube channel to get all the latest information. One other piece of housekeeping before we get started, actually two. Number one, if you're joining us live on Zoom, welcome. Please keep the chat in the chat box to a minimum with regards to personal issues and keep it class related or Hebrew or Israel related only. And second, those of us who are interested or joining our Cafe Oleh Conversations class, our last of our 4 pilot classes is this week. We'll actually be doing, we'll get prepared for next week's class, which is all about Purim, as some people say. So you will be getting the spreadsheet with the relevant vocabulary in the next day ahead of class, as opposed to what we're reviewing today. Right, let's get started. So today, I said we were going to talk about repaying bills, which we absolutely are going to do. We're going to have a special lesson on reading your pay slips along with Nefesh B'Nefesh's employment division sometime in the near future, because we realize it's a much bigger deal to actually explain something that even native Israelis don't get. Instead, we're going to do a very important bill everyone has if they live in Israel, regardless of where they live in Israel. And it goes with our last few classes that had to do with municipal elections and emergency service bills. We are going to look at, probably can't see it, but you're going to see a better copy of this in a second. We're going to look at your Arnona bill. Arnona, however you pronounce it, is the municipal property tax that all Israeli residents have to pay. Even if you're not a resident, but you are living in an apartment in Israel or any sort of domicile, you're renting an apartment or have bought one, you have to pay a property tax on it, which goes to your local municipality. We're going to talk about all sorts of different aspects of it, including what the heck is Arnona? What does it actually mean? Spoiler alert, it is not Hebrew in origin. And we're going to look at how, most important, Arnona is calculated. Now, I'm going to show you my Arnona bill, obviously with my address and some other details blocked out, because while I love you all, you don't need to know where I live in Tel Aviv. But also to emphasize the details that, number one, are important on this bill, and number two, that are universal throughout Israel, regardless what municipality you live in, big, small. The same things affect your Arnona price, which is a very important calculation when you're thinking about home economics and your general bills. So with that, instead of a spreadsheet, we're going to do some slides today. So what you have here, I can open this up, is a shot of my Arnona bill. It just came the other day. It's due at the end of the month. And we're going to look at it in all the different aspects of it. I'm going to move around the bar as much as I can to get out of the way. There might be a little bit, don't worry, you'll get these slides. So first off, the word Arnona. Arnona is not Hebrew in origin. Arnona is the Hebrew pronunciation of the word Anona, which comes from Latin. This is a property tax that's already listed in the Talmud, coming during the Roman, during the time of the Roman Empire in the land of Israel. It comes from the same root Anona as anum or annual, meaning it was an annual property tax you had to pay. Originally, it applied to produce and livestock, but it was then adopted in the last 150 years during the British Mandate period to deal with property tax. It has since been reformed multiple times. Basically, the way it works is every local municipality is in charge of collecting property tax on its both residential and commercial spaces in its city, and that goes to help pay for a significant percentage of the municipality's expenses. Okay, we're going to look at Tel Aviv's here, and we're going to look at, most importantly, the three different factors that go into your price. Okay, every municipality in Israel fixes their own price for Arnona. They're all built in a similar way, in that they are all you're being taxed on every square meter, and it's more specifically every enclosed square meter. So we're going to look at that as well as what are the other factors that go into your pricing. So first off, this is the bill. This is the paper form. It can also come digital, but the paper form looks like this. It looks like a lot of Hebrew. It's actually a lot of the same information. And as you'll see, if you look around by yourself, you see that I wrote in blue text payment methods. On this one bill, there are 5 different payment methods listed. They really want you to pay your bill. Again, because a significant portion of the municipality's expenses come from the income they get from this property tax, Arnona. Okay. So with that, we're going to go through it together. Again, not every municipality is going to look like this bill, but they're going to have the exact same information, and it's going to be you're going to be able to access the details behind the scenes to figure it out. So first off, you see it's listed. It has in blue. It says my name first off at the top. It says big letters at the top of the page, Cheshbon Arnona Klalit Litkufa. So the general Arnona bill for the period of 2 months, right? It's from the 1st of March, skipped ahead, 1st of March to the end of April. Okay, so it gives you the dates. It then breaks it down into 4 sections. The first one is here on the right-hand side, because remember we read right to left. Pirtei haneches. Pirtei is the compound noun form of the word pratim, our first word here on the right-hand side. Pratim means details. And the second word, which is also our second word in the list, is neches. Neches is property. Okay? You put these two together, property details. It lists Ktovet haneches. If we go down from Pirtei haneches here on the top right, you see that it says, first off, Ktovet haneches, the address of the property. I've blocked that out because, again, I love you all, but you don't need to know where I live. This is the first factor that goes into determining how much you pay. Shetach haneches. Shetach is surface. Okay, the surface area of your property, and it's measured in meter meruba, or as you see here, mem apostrophe 2 apostrophes resh. If you can't see this, don't worry, you'll get a copy of this. This was the easiest way I could show the whole bill in full and be able to annotate it as we go. Okay, so it's measured in meter meruba, meter meter, meruba square. Ribua, if I can make one, is a square. Meruba is squared. It's the participle. Okay, so we measure it in square meters. The important thing here to know is that you are taxed on enclosed space. If you have a rooftop apartment like I do, you are not taxed on the open exposed area. You're only taxed on the enclosed part, meaning that there's a roof. There's at least, I believe it has to be 2 or 3 walls surrounding the property to be considered taxable. Okay, so I pay for the inside, not the outside, in other words. So that's factor number one, how big your place is, because the size of it, you get taxed accordingly. The second and third are in the same line, and if you aren't looking carefully, you wouldn't necessarily see it. This third line under Piltei HaNeches, we did Ktovet HaNeches, Shetach HaNeches. Now it says Ezor Mas, or Ezor Mispar is really what it's trying to say here. And then it says a number, Shtaim, the number 2, and then it says immediately to its left. And this is important because you need to see what it says here to its left. Sug HaBinyan He Vav. This is the second and third factors that go into determining your Arnona status. A zol means zone. Okay, and Sug HaBinyan is building type. We're going to come back to this bill in a second because I want to show you a very important guide. Every municipality will put out for every year a general rules regarding Arnona and the pricing that goes with it. And I'm gonna, if you don't believe me that everything is, that I only believe in the state of Tel Aviv Yafo, I'll show you Jerusalem's municipality just to prove that it's not the case just for Tel Aviv. Every municipality does this. They put out a whole, what we call in Hebrew, takanon. It's the rules and regulations for a given topic, in this case, property tax in a given municipality. And what we're going to look at are the maps, Ezol and Sug HaBinyan, and how it's calculated. This is a map of Tel Aviv. As you see, it is in 5 different colors, Ezol, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These zones are determined, just like in all municipalities in Israel, by socioeconomic status. Ezol 1 is considered the wealthiest of the neighborhoods in Tel Aviv. Ezol 2 is the next, down to 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so depending on where you live in the city also affects your Arnona payment, meaning if it's priced at a different place depending on the socioeconomic status of that neighborhood. So as you see here, the areas that are marked yellow, Ezol 1, are going to be taxed higher than the areas farther down on the list. And you see that is very much indicative of the socioeconomic breakup of Tel Aviv, that the working class neighborhoods, the socioeconomic, I don't want to say poor, working class and lower socioeconomic status neighborhoods are in the south of the city, south and east, and the more affluent neighborhoods are in the north and west. Okay, so if we go back to mine, you see here it says Ezol Mispar Shtaim. So it means I'm taxed according to Ezol Shtaim, the green area. And then it says Sug HaBinyan He plus Vav. This is a very tricky situation. Thank goodness everything is registered far in advance. You don't need to do anything. If you rent in Israel, you don't need to worry about any of this. It's all well documented in what's called the tabu, which is an Ottoman era registry style of properties in Israel. If you own or if you're buying, you'll speak to your real estate agent about this. But basically, the Sug HaBinyan is a whole bunch of circumstances that again go into how your property is taxed. So I'm going to show you Tel Aviv's. It is very complicated. Don't worry about writing down all this. First off, you can look it up on your own and you'll get a copy of this in our recording. But second, it's very specific. So what you see here is a tavla, a table. It says Sug HaBinyan, right? It's telling you the type, building type, and it has 6 different categories. On the right-hand side, Te'ur HaBinyan, the description of the building. And then you see at the top left, it says Shnat Gmar HaBniya, the year in which your building was completed, meaning it was finished building. And you see it's broken down into it's anywhere, it's in different situations, right? So up until 1939, 1940, 1959, 1960, 1969, and so forth, okay? You have to do the cross to find yours. So for example, mine says Hey plus Vav. Hey plus Vav is a number of these. I know my building is older, so it's got to be one of these that has a Vav. But you'll see each of these categories applies to a different type. This is only residential. We're not talking commercial here, right? So if you go down this list, and I didn't translate it because it gets very technical. And again, it's very well documented by the municipality, so you don't need to double check this, but you should know regardless what's here. So the first category is וילה שאינה נכללת בסעיפים 5 ו-6 להלן. A villa, it sounds like the word villa. What they're talking about is a detached house, usually a single family house, right? That's not the most common of things, certainly here in Tel Aviv, but it is taxed at a different level than living in an apartment unit in a building. If it's a detached home, called a villa, and it says a villa that is not included in sections 5 and 6 below. Okay, so we'll get to 5 and 6 below in a second. Number 2 is a apartment that includes 2 or more apartments, and at the end of its building has at least one of the following features. One is central heating, the other one is a specific type of elevator going to a certain number of floors. I'm not going into the details because again, all you have to do is look at your own bill and it'll say next to Sug HaBinyan which one you are. So you'll be able to figure out through this code which one's included. Plus, we're talking about, in this case, does your building have central heating? Yes or no? Does your building have an elevator? And if so, how many floors? That's what it's talking about here. Row 3 here is an apartment in zone number 1. We said the most affluent one, whose surface area is 180 square meters or more and isn't included in 5 or 6 below. So it's taxed at a different level. Number 4, a building that includes 2 or more apartments and doesn't include sections 1, 2, 5, or 6. Okay, and then 5 or 6, the one that it keeps referring to, number 5 is apartments that are completely enclosed in a basement and aren't part of number 6. Number 6 is it's a building that's made out of basically aluminum siding or out of wood that is arai, meaning trust me, none of you live in this. A temporary dwelling is the best way to think of this. Okay, so with all of those, your apartment is then factored in according to its shetach. What do we say? It's called shetach haneches, the surface area of your property that's measured in meta meruba, in a square meters. Number 2, what area it is, azol, azol it is, what number region you are in your city. And number 3, according to this table, meaning what is the structure of your building and when was it built. My building is old, it does not have an elevator, and it certainly doesn't have central heating. So it gets taxed at Hey and Vav. You can also understand the farther the letters go down, usually that means it's a cheaper price. Okay. That is the most important part, frankly, of this whole big piece of paper, this A4 size piece of paper. The part that's the most important is right here under Piltei HaNeches, the details of your property, because that indicates what you need to be taxed at. It gives you all the major factors. The one that's not on here, because it's not relevant for me, are personal, pratim ishiyim. Each Arnona also offers certain discounts depending on the status of the person who lives there and who has the contract. So for example, if you're an Oleh Hadash, rather important for our community here, you get a discount for 12 months in your first 2 years of making Aliyah. So within your first 2 years of Aliyah, you need to go to your municipality, submit a whole bunch of documents, and you'll get a discount for 12 months of Arnona. Nefesh B'Nefesh has a great guide in English on their website for all the details you need to get your discount. But know that Olim are one of the categories that get a discount. There's also discounts depending on age. Now, because of the war, if you served in reserve duty, all sorts of other factors that go into lowering your Arnona bill based on your personal details. I don't have any of those, so it's only listed based on the size, shetach haneches, the surface area of my apartment that's enclosed, what area I live in Tel Aviv, and the building type. Then it has under it mispar haneches, because again, all residential properties, just like all commercial properties, are registered in this book called the Tabu in the municipality, so they know under which they what they're responsible for. On the left-hand side here, it says Piltei Cheshbon. In the middle here, excuse me. Piltei Cheshbon are the details of your cheshbon, your bill, right? And this is just giving you everything of your account number, the voucher number or the slip number of this, your contract number. These are all things that are used when you go to actually pay your bill. They're going to ask for these details. And if you're confused about that, especially here in Tel Aviv, but I think this is also the case for a lot of municipalities, they give you a picture of a bill like this, and they point to the specific parts that you need, right? You don't even need to know Hebrew. You just need to follow the arrow bit on what they show as the picture of what you need to fill in and the box where you put in the detail, right? So if it says, if it's pointing to, for example, mispar cheshbon lakoach, right? And it's just pointing to that, you don't need to know what that means. You just need to know to fill in this number, 106.15.002. That's my specific number in the municipality, both to pay for Arnona and the other utility that comes with your property taxes, which is water and sewage. Okay, and under all these details, it gives you Ta'arich Arichat HaCheshbon, the date that this bill was issued. Okay, so just so you know when this was factored, because maybe you did renovations on your apartment, maybe you moved out and you need to do a prorated conversion with the person who moved in. By the way, if it's not clear already, if you rent in Israel, unless it says otherwise in your contract, it will say very specifically in your rental contract who pays Arnona. Almost all the time it is the renter, not the landlord. Okay, but that will be listed in your contract. It's up to you and your responsibility to put your name on the Arnona bill with the municipality. Okay. At the top left, you see payment methods 1 and 2. I told you Tel Aviv is all about collecting their Arnona, and there are 5 different payment methods on this one slip of paper. How to do this? It lists at the top 1 and 2. It first off gives you a hotline number, and I know it's a hotline number because it begins with an asterisk, in Hebrew kochavit. If I call kochavit 3013 or asterisk 3013, I will get through to the municipality's payment division, and I can pay for my bill over the phone. I can also go to their website, which is listed here, right? tel-aviv.gov.il. 2 different ways to pay: phone, internet. Third payment way to pay is right under the first 2 ones, which is a QR code. I can scan the QR code from the physical bill that came in the mail on my phone, and I'll get a link to the payment website. In the middle here, Alma Hatashlum, right? The third section, it's telling you what you're paying. Okay, so at least here in Tel Aviv, the 2 basic things you pay for are Arnona, right? And it says here what the cost is for 61 days. It's 229 shekel and 48 agorot, based on all the factors we just talked about. And then it says under here, Hetel Shmira Chiyuv. Hetel Shmira is our next term over here. Hetel is a levy or a surcharge. Okay, lehatil is to place something on something, to put something on something. In this case, it's Hetel Shmira. Shmira is referring to security. right? In about 10 years ago, the municipality passed a levy on residents to pay for, in addition to national police, that there would be a municipal security service. And you'll see that here in Tel Aviv. The municipality has its own security service that drives around town, ensuring safety and order, law and order. Okay, and on that, I pay for 61 days the 11 shekel and 84 agorot. Okay, all together, here is the payment, and it's circled for me in red. I don't need to do it. Didn't do that. That's how it comes. The total of my bill for 2 months of Arnona. And it says here on the right, in red letters, Letashlum ad tarich. It's telling you the day by which you need to pay your bill, which is the end of March, the 31st of March. The next block under it says all sorts of things with regards to if you don't pay on time, all the interest that can be put on it according to the law. Under that, it has hodaot ishiot, personal announcements. In this case, it's saying this is a place, for example, if you are either overpaid and you have money due back to you, or if you underpaid or you have a debt, right? So if you have a chov, our other word here, debt, it'll be listed here, and it'll say how much it is. Okay. Otherwise, it's a pretty standard bill in that there isn't much else doing. We've gone over in the past utility bills before. Probably the most complicated one is the electricity bill, because the electricity bill is you are charged based on when you use electricity at certain times of day, and you have to know which are the different times of day and how it's breaked off and the terms that they use, and you have to look at the graph to follow it, and then you can decide whether it's a prorated or it's by the meter. This is very simple because unless you're doing renovations to your apartment, right, or you're moving to a new property, the property's value vis-a-vis Arnona stays the same, right? So whether I'm here next year or in 10 years, until the municipality itself changes the pricing, it always knows that this is 32 meter meruba in zone 2, suga binyan hey and vav. That won't change. Okay, those are the standard things, but those are the key components of what goes into factoring and figuring out my amount. Payment number 4 here is that you can pay, even if you can't read all this, you can certainly recognize the Apple and Google Pay logos. You can pay by Apple Pay or Google Pay in your digital wallet. And then finally, because we love how historical Arnona is, I told you it reaches back to the British Mandate, and even before that to the Roman Empire. What you see at the bottom is a 5th payment method. I'm going to show you a 6th payment method, a secret one, in a second. The 5th payment method is via the post office. You can take this bill to the post office, and with that barcode at the bottom, they will scan it, and you can pay in this with cash or a check. I highly recommend not doing that. First off, because no one should be subjected to going to the Israeli post office anytime soon. That's a form of self-torture no one deserves. Plus, you have all the other means of paying it. You can set up a horat keva, a standing order that your card automatically gets charged every 2 months with the bill. You actually get discounts if you do that. You pay in advance. But this is a remnant of a time when people paid a lot of their bills at the bank. People still do pay bills at the bank. I'm not trying to take that away from anyone who does that on this call. But you absolutely can still pay your bills at the bank. That's what it'll look like. You have to bring the actual bill there. They have to scan it in their computer, and then you'll be asked to pay the amount that's, again, circled in red at the bottom, which is the same as circled in red in the middle. Very simple bill to read. Once you figure out how easy it's organized, right? Details of the property, details of your own account, how much you're paying, any specific issues with regards to your billing, and then 5 different ways to pay it. Pretty simple. Quick class, right? Easy. before we get to questions, because it's just that easy to pay Arnona, you do have to pay this, by the way. It does accrue interest if you don't pay. And again, it goes to pay for municipal services. In addition to the other sources of revenue that the municipality may have, we didn't even go into commercial property, which is taxed the same way, obviously with different numbers, but it's taxed the same way in terms of where it is in the city, how big it is, what's the type of building it's located in, and so forth. And there are discounts that go with that. We're only focusing on residential because that's what affects most of us. There is a secret sixth way to pay your bills. And it's not just Arnona, it's also your electricity and phone bills and even your government bills. Let's say you need to pay for renewing your passport or getting a driver's license or getting a gun license, whatever it may be. Many of your banks, see if I can make this a little bit bigger. I can't, unfortunately, but you'll get a screenshot of this. Many of your banks, this is a screenshot of my bank, Bank Leumi, has an option called, Bank Leumi has something called Leumi Pay. And I'm pretty sure that Bank Hapoalim and Bank Discount, the other two big banks in Israel, have the same thing, where you can pay your bills directly through your bank account. Instead of using a credit card, instead of using your digital wallet, instead of paying in cash or a check, you can simply have it deducted from your bank account, not from your credit card. Because remember, you have two lines of credit in Israel, your bank account and your credit card. Here, when you go to Tashlumi, Havarot v'Tashlumim, here on the right-hand side, and then you go to Tashlum Cheshbonot, Leumi Pay, and you see I made sure that the guide was at the top left. You'll be able to do this on your own. I just wanted to give you the screenshot of what this looked like because this was also a revelation to me several years ago. Let's say I didn't want to put something on my credit card, or let's say I just wanted to get it done and paid with because I had the money in the bank, whatever it may be. There are three different types of bills you can pay directly, at least with Bank Leumi and probably with the other big bank accounts through your online account. One is Tashlum Chashmal v'Telefon. If you clicked on one of these, right, it would open up an option to whichever electricity or telephone company you have. Most people in Israel have Chevrat Chashmal for electricity. For telephone, that could be Bezek, that could be any of the other ones. It'll ask you to put in certain details of your bill in the form online, and then it'll just deduct the amount from your account. Simple as that, right? There's no interlocutor of a credit card, using a credit card or going through a credit card, company or anything like that. The middle one says Tashlum LaRashuyot Mekomiyot. If you remember, we talked about Rashuyot Mekomiyot in municipal elections, local authorities. The good news is the vast majority of communities in which the people on this call and people who are thinking of making Aliyah from North America and from elsewhere in the world are going to live are included in this. The bad news is that it leaves out the first and second biggest municipalities in Israel, i.e. Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. Haifa is there, Beersheba is there, all the other towns that have large English-speaking communities are there, except for Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. So them's the breaks for us, Tel Avivians and Jerusalemites. But know that there's an option. You can pay your Arnona bill, this bill we just went through, directly through your bank account, right? So if for whatever reason you need to do that, you're maxed out on your credit card, you don't have any new checks, you don't want to use cash, you just want to pay it online and be done, this is an option for you. And like I said, the third one on the left-hand side is Tashlum LaRashuyot Memshaltiot, payments for governmental agencies or authorities. And again, it's a whole bunch of them. You'll go into your own bank account. I didn't want to go into it because, again, you don't need to see my bank account. You see all the different agencies that accept online payments through a bank transfer, because that's essentially what we're doing here. And then you'll press Hemshech, continue, and you'll get paid. Right? It gives you all sorts of other information here, just the limits of how much you can do with a bank transfer. Bank transfers are a very popular option in Israel when you're paying within Israel. So if you need to pay to someone else, and let's say you don't use Bit or Paybox on your phone, it's the same thing. A lot of local municipalities, by the way, you can pay with bit or pay box. This, however, as opposed to being connected to your credit card, is simply a bank transfer directly from your bank account to the bill that you need to pay, electricity, or your phone, which is nationwide, local authorities, i.e. your Arnona bill, with the exception of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and some other places, or government ministries. Very simple to understand how you read your bill. Now that you have a guide here, let me go back to it, if it'll let me. Oh, did it freeze? Hope it didn't. There we go, right? Here's the bill. I wrote out and put a guide to the things you need to know here. Again, the wording is going to be the same regardless if you live here in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem or Arnona or Modi'in or anywhere else in the country. It's just the format is going to look slightly different. Maybe the font's going to be different. Certainly the municipal logo is going to be different and the website's going to be different. But the point is all the information is the same and pointed out the most relevant things. So you know how your property is taxed, right? Based on where you are in your municipality, the size, and this type of building that you live in, as well as any personal details such as aliyah, your age, and so forth, and then how to pay. Hopefully your municipality isn't as greedy as Tel Aviv's to give you multiple ways to pay here. Okay, I'm going to stop here because I see we have questions. And honestly, this is one of the easier bills to deal with. Like I said, it's not as complicated as an electricity bill. We've gone over cell phone bills where you have to look at all the different lines of the various parts of your package. It's not nearly as complicated even as your phone and internet bill. It's just the same calculation each time unless the fees change on the municipality's side. Okay, let's get to some questions. Do you pay the property tax if you rent and not own the property? Like I said, that will be listed in your apartment contract, but the vast majority of people who rent in Israel also pay the property tax. That's usually included as a provision in not only in the contract, but by the way, when you're looking for apartments, it'll be listed approximately what the bills, including Arnona, cost. Arnona tax on every enclosed square meter. How about gardens? A garden is not enclosed. Okay. A garden is enclosed if there are certain walls around it. If you have an open balcony, meaning that there is no roof, there are no walls on either side, that is not taxed. If you have a garden, and especially on a ground floor that has walls, I think it's at least 2 walls, if not 3 walls, then it's considered a enclosed property and can be taxed. My Arnona in Jerusalem is for the year. Is there an option to change that? Yes. When at the beginning of each year, you are given the option to either pay it by month or by every other month. As you saw here, I pay every 2 months for 2 months, or you can pay for the year ahead, and it's usually given a discount. Sometimes it's a nice discount. It can be upwards of 20% discount if you pay for the entire year in advance, and then you can pay that, by the way, in installments. So it's as if you're paying like you would normally. You have to do your own calculations with it, but usually you're allowed to be charged like I am every other month, or you're given the option at the beginning of the year to pay for the whole year in advance. What if the building has central heat capabilities, but the owners voted 10 years ago not to utilize the heating system? I would double check on, it would be reflected on your Arnona as well as in the tabu. You do have access to the tabu. You have to arrange that with the municipality to go into the big book of properties in your given municipality to see what's listed. But yes, if you're, that clause in the Tel Aviv one says that it's simply if the building has central heating. It didn't specify if you actually turn it on or not, but it's implied that you turn it on. If that's not the case, you need to consult with the owners and with the tabu in your municipality. Does central heating mean within the apartment, within the building? Within the building. Is there a universal date that the Arnona is issued all over the country for each tax year, or does it depend on your city region? That's a great question. I believe most municipalities do the every other month, i.e. you pay in 2-month increments, or for the year. It's usually at the beginning or end of the civil year, not the Jewish year. So you'll get that voucher to pay for the year ahead, usually in December or January. That's my recollection. How is Arnona calculated for the government housing? That I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. There isn't much government housing anymore in Israel, at least that's offered on such a large size to private citizens, but I don't know that one. Using the QR code to the website to pay, can you use American credit card? Great question. Because Arnona is usually paid by renters regardless, right? So whether you're here as an Oleh or Ola, depending on your gender, or you're here for university studies, or you're here temporarily, you can pay with a non-Israeli credit card. This is one of the bills that you can absolutely pay with a non-Israeli credit card, and it's perfectly all right. So you can use an American credit card. I don't know if the QR code specifically allows you to do that, but certainly if you pay through the website, certainly on Tel Aviv's, certainly on Jerusalem's, you can use an American credit card for that. Major municipalities, yes. They will sometimes tell you that if they, by phone, they can't always do it. That's a lazy excuse on their side. You can use an American credit card or any non-Israeli credit card to pay Arnona. Can you please tell us about times of day discounts for electrical? The electric company told me they don't have them. We have an entire episode, like I mentioned, on paying your electricity bill, youtube.com. What section tells you the penalty fee for not paying Arnona on time? Again, let me share that with you. Number 4, right under personal announcements, meaning to you directly, it's telling you that you may have a debt. In this case, I do. I blocked out how much it is. You don't need to know that. It's not that big of a deal anyways, but the point is, this is where it would be under number 4. It will tell you how much it is and all the different ways to pay. You pay the exact same way that you would the rest of this bill. But yes, number 4 is if you haven't paid on time. The actual penalty fee you can look up on the municipality's website. It's a interest number of fixed. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. Is there a senior discount for retired residents and citizens? Don't hold me to this. The Nefesh B'Nefesh website will say better, but I believe there is. If you move to a new property, is the Arnona bill automatically generated, or do you need to register for it? How would one do this? Great question. Again, Nefesh B'Nefesh has a great step-by-step guide of how to put your name on the Arnona bill, right? My name appears at the top. It is not automatically registered. When you move to a new apartment, you always have to do 2 things immediately. Number 1 is register with Misrad HaPnim, with the Interior Ministry, that you've changed your address. That affects things like what we just did the other week, voting, for example, but anything else related to your residence in Israel needs to be updated with Misrad HaPnim, and it needs to be updated with the Iriyah. So even if you're moving within the same city, you need to go to the Iriyah with a copy of your apartment contract, and they will update who's on the bill for that property's Arnona tax. Okay, that goes for also if you're buying, obviously, but yes, it does need to be billed. Likewise, if you move from one place to another, you need to ensure that the new tenants change it as well. But it is not automatically generated. You need to go and be in touch with your municipality to do it. Nefesh B'Nefesh has a step-by-step guide in English how to do it on their website. I pay my bill on paybill.co.il. How can I arrange auto pay? I don't think Paybill allows you to do automatic payment. Usually Horat Keva, where you do the automatic payment, you can do in 2 ways. One is when you go to the municipality to get this, to have your name on it, you can set up Horat Keva with them. You can also usually do it on their website. Holat keva means standing order, and we've talked about this before with finances, how to pay automatically without having to do anything. The other way you can do it is if you pay for the entire year in advance when you get the annual bill, and then you can break it into tashlumim, into installments. Is Holat Keva the same as directly paying from the bank? No. And we have several classes on Holat Keva. Holat Keva is a standing order in the bank. It's the what happens is that, let's say you're paying your Arnona via Holat Keva. You make an agreement between yourself, the bank, and Arnona. You sign off that every time the bill comes in from Arnona, you don't even look at it. Whatever's on the total amount due is automatically deducted from your bank account or from your credit card, because you can also do it via credit card. Okay. That works for things like Arnona, because like I said multiple times, the fee doesn't change. Okay. Unless your municipality is going through a restructuring of its Arnona, which is not very often, the price is going to stay the same. The places you don't necessarily want to do Holat Keva is, for example, your electricity bill. Why? You're going to use your electricity differently in the winter than you are in the summer, and depending on where you live in the country. So your bill may be really low in the spring, but it may be really high in the summer because you're turning on the air conditioner every other minute. So Holat Keva is only good, is financially makes sense only when the bill is a steady amount. So for example, my cell phone bill is the same amount unless I go over, which is very rare. So theoretically, I could do Holat Keva, not just because the bank will allow that and the cell phone company will give that as an option, but for me personally, financially, that bill doesn't change from month to month so much. Is there a fee surcharge to pay bills by credit cards? This is Israel. You're going to get charged by doing pretty much everything you do. You won't get charged nearly as much by paying by credit card, but there are fees on everything. They're called amalot. Someday in the near future, we'll do a whole class on amalot and banking, and there are ways to reduce the amount of amalot you pay, the fees and commissions that you have to pay throughout the year. They're very complicated to get around. You have to know the specific ways to do it. I'm going to learn up on it so I can help you all with it, including myself. Does BIT pay directly from my bank account? No, BIT is connected to your, BIT can go from your, BIT is usually connected when you're paying something to a credit card. When you're receiving money, it goes to your bank account. I think there is a way to do both by a bank account, but I'm pretty sure when you pay by BIT, it's only by your credit card, and only when you receive money on BIT, like someone is paying you back for something, you split a meal or something, that goes to your bank account, but don't hold me to that. The blue type that says payment method in English, did you put that in? Absolutely. There is not a drop of English on any of your utility bills in Israel, so you're welcome for that. Are all Arnonas paid every other month as it is on your bill, or does that vary monthly or annually? I believe you, again, all Arnona bills allow you to pay the year in advance, usually at a discount, or it's monthly or bi-monthly. You'll usually get an option, monthly or bi-monthly or annual. Could you explain what the tabu is? Okay, really quickly. Tabu is just as Arnona dates from the Roman Empire and then from the British Mandate period, tabu dates from the Ottoman Empire. Because remember, before the British Mandate, Ottoman Empire for 500 years or so. They registered every piece of property in the land of Israel, commercial and residential. When you go, whether it is, especially when you're going to buy property or sell property, it needs to be updated in the tabu. The tabu is the list of every single property there is in Israel. My apartment, for example, is listed in that, but my name isn't there. It's the landlords, the owners of the building, whose names are affixed to it. That is part of real estate. That your real estate agent will explain how to get it changed. It's a very specific method to go into the tabu. It's not open to everyone. And I think it's only open, you can only go in a certain amount of times in a given year. But if you're renting in Israel, you don't need to worry about the tabu. That's not important. It's not relevant to you. So long as you have a legal contract, your apartment is listed in the tabu, and you know that because you're getting a bill for a residential property by your municipality, you don't need to worry about the tabu. Just reading a few other relevant questions here. Do residents of kibbutzim pay this tax? So again, all municipalities pay this tax in a certain way. We're talking here about a municipality, a city. When we talked about local governance, you have local councils and then regional councils. In a regional council, you have the regional council and then you have the kibbutz. How they structure it is up to them. Kibbutz, I assume, pools a certain amount of the salary if it's a true kibbutz in the very traditional sense, rather than individually taxing everyone. It's simply pooled from the total amount and then redistributed, but don't hold me to that. If you sublet an apartment from someone else, are you responsible for paying the Arnona? Great question. If you're subletting as opposed to renting an apartment, you need to make that agreement between you and the person who's on the apartment lease. Meaning, if you're subletting for 2 weeks, if you usually you are not asked to pay 2 weeks worth of the Arnona. It's not big enough for it to make it a huge difference. Okay, but that could be different. Subletting for a longer period of time, that's an issue that you need to make sure is in a contract or in some written document. A lot of apartments have a clause that you may not sublet the apartment, right? So my contract, for example, says I may not sublet the apartment so long as my name is on the lease. Full stop. Is the Arnona affected by population growth? As of now, no. It is reconsidered again. I don't know the frequency of how often it's considered, but those zones that you saw are based on socioeconomic status. I'm in Jerusalem. We pay Arnona directly from the bank. How can I see the map of zones like you showed for Tel Aviv? Great question. To prove that we are not entirely Tel Aviv centric here, I'm going to show you Jerusalem's municipality website. Each of your municipalities has a website. Each of them will have the rules regarding Arnona. In this case, here is Jerusalem's Tarifim v'Tashlumim, fees and payments. And it gives you a whole to do here, and then it tells you all the different aspects of, right? Elementim shel chishuv Arnona, the elements of calculating the Arnona, and it goes into 4 different sections regarding the type of building, and we saw that in the Tel Aviv version. Tarifei Arnona, you can see the entire, I think it's 75 pages worth of it, and the zones, as well as the type of building, all the different things you have here. Here's the Ezorim, here's the Sugei Binyan, so you see all the different prices, for example, here in Jerusalem by square meter, depending on what azul you live in, what region, and what type of building you live in. Okay, all of these things are available on your municipality website that you all should know because you're paying your Arnona bill or you're getting other municipal services from your municipality often by their website. So in the case of Jerusalem, it's jerusalem.muni.il. FYI, Modi, no annual discount on paying it all at once. Senior citizen discount, no discount if you did not work in Israel and are eligible to me, so you do not get enough money. I have a private garden and pay Arnona on the area, but it's taxed at a lower rate. Municipalities do have a certain level of freedom with regards to how they pay, how they tax. So you saw, for example, Tel Aviv has 5 zones, Jerusalem has 4 zones. Jerusalem is a bigger city than Tel Aviv. They have 4 zones, and their pricing might be different. They can make rules, but typically Arnona is not on open spaces. So my rooftop, because there are no walls and it is not enclosed space, is not considered part of the property that I have to pay taxes on. Okay, we are at the top of the hour. I know that that's always an important one because even though there is some great resources with Nefesh B'Nefesh on how to pay Arnona, it doesn't necessarily go through the bill itself. So now you have that. You'll get a copy of that of those slides, so you can go through and see all the individual places. To get the information on your specific municipality, you'll need to go to your municipality's website, but it will be listed by law. They have to list all the rules with regards to Arnona, how it is calculated, and so forth. But you'll be able to see that on the website. Next week is our last class of the winter session. We're going to be doing everything to get you ready for the next big holiday, which is Purim. Purim is a rather appropriate holiday for what we're going through here in Israel and about um, uh, subduing and dispatching our would-be foes. So it's a great time to not only learn some basics of the holiday, but specifically how it's celebrated in Israel, which might be different from your home Jewish community, but to hear Israeli customs with regards to the holiday. We are going to be taking a break after next week for just 1 week. Don't worry, we're only going away for 1 week, and then we will start our spring session. You'll get all the details to sign up for the spring session, should you want to, and get ready for the biggest holiday of them all, Pesach, which is, if you've never experienced Pesach in Israel, you're in for a treat, because once Purim is over, it's immediately a full month of preparation for the holiday. There's a reason why it's the most celebrated Jewish holiday, not just in Israel, but around the world. You'll see why when we get to it. But in the meantime, all of our previous lessons are up on youtube.com. Please take some time to review them. This class will be up there in the next day or two. If you're joining us for Wednesday's conversation class, you will get a separate email with the vocabulary we're going to use for Purim. We're going to go over it again next Monday. So whether you join us this Wednesday or not, Monday we're going to talk Purim. Until then, Toda Rabah. Thank you all for joining. Hope to see you next week. And until then, Litrot. Take care.